Hey everybody, I am Julie Matheny. I am a speech pathologist and IBCLC board certified lactation consultant, and today I really want to talk to you about leaking milk. Leaking milk. What is it? Why does it happen? All the different products and gadgets and gizmos out there to help you in your leaking journey. So let's first talk about leaking milk. It is normal to leak milk when you're breastfeeding. Now, here's the thing. There is no normal amount to leak. Some people leak and some people don't. Leaking is just an indication that you have milk in your breast. Now, this is only a problem to leak if you're not pregnant or breastfeeding. If you do happen to start leaking breast milk and you are not pregnant, you don't have a history of pregnancy, you are not currently breastfeeding, that is called galactorrhea, and that is a medical concern. You would want to have that evaluated by a medical physician. So if you randomly start leaking milk out of the blue, please go see a physician. That can be an indication of some other medical issues. But if you have been pregnant and or are lactating or breastfeeding, leaking milk can be par for the course. Leaking milk, again, is just a sign that you are breastfeeding and have milk in your breast. It is not an indication of milk supply. I have seen people with very low milk supply still leak milk, and I have seen people with an oversupply or an abundant supply not leak milk at all. So it's not a sign of your milk supply. It's also very common to leak in the beginning, in the early days of breastfeeding, and that leaking can slow with time. So don't expect to leak for forever. Now, some people only leak for a couple days or weeks at the beginning of their journey, and some people will leak the entire time they breastfeed or for months. I leaked for almost 11 months in my 2-year breastfeeding journey with both of my girls, and leaked all the time, and I have friends that never leaked at all. So for us leakers, we often need to use more nursing pads, and it can be a pain, but it's really not a sign of anything. Also, don't be surprised if leaking slows with time and gets less volume. Your body wants to be efficient with making milk. So if you are collecting leaking milk, and we'll talk about all the different collectors in a minute, if you're collecting leaking milk and you start to see that over time you're not leaking as much, that can also be a very normal sign that your body is more efficient. So don't be alarmed or surprised if with time you leak less. So now let's kind of jump in and talk about a lot of the different things out there that you can use when you're leaking. So first is your nursing pads. Nursing pads basically are the sanitary napkins of the breastfeeding community. And there's all kinds of different brands out there. Most of the major breastfeeding pump companies, Amida, Lansano, I believe Medela, they all have these disposable nursing pads. Bamboobies is another big company. And basically what these nursing pads are, they're disposable. You rip them open. They have little stickers on them. You peel the sticker off. You peel them off. You stick them in your bra, and they stick in there. And then when they're full of milk, you throw them out. So you can change those multiple times a day. The disadvantage of these ones is sometimes if you have nipple damage, your nipple can stick to this because it's absorbent, which can be ouchy, ouchy. You can put a little coconut oil on these, stick them in the fridge, and make a little padsicle if you have some sore or tender nipples, or help keep them from sticking. These can be a great option, but not sustainable for the long term, right? So if you only leak a little bit occasionally or for a short amount of time, these can be a good option. You just throw them out. Now, if you're a heavy leaker like I was, and I apologize for the slurping, that's my 4-year-old drinking a yogurt smoothie behind me. So if you hear slurping, that's my happy helper today. Okay, that's what you're hearing. If you're a heavy leaker like I was, they do make reusable, washable nursing pads. These are soft bamboo fiber. They get softer with time. They're really absorbent. You can get these in different sizes, and you wash them. Davine and Adley makes a bra liner too. I don't have mine anymore because I give my stuff away to patients, but they make a bra liner where it's a big, large pad that tucks in the bra. So lots of fun options for Reusable nursing pads, again, you can put coconut oil on these, stick these in the fridge, make a little brassicle if you are having any pain or sensitivity, and help keep them from sticking. Other options for when you leak are passive milk collectors. These you tuck into your bra and they passively collect leaking milk. So we've got the Lacticup. I like this. It's a nice small profile. It's not very large, breast shaped. Medela makes breast shells that keep nipples from sticking but can be used as a passive leak collector. The Milky's Milk Saver. This is a old school one. It's pretty bulky. And if you lean over, you're gonna spill some milk. And then Haakaa makes the Ladybug. Now the issue with the Ladybug is if the vent is open, you have a passive collector. But as soon as you close that vent and suction it on, it's no longer a passive collector. That little bit of suction that generates from having it closed can pull out more milk than you just leak. So if you're using a Ladybug and want a passive collector, pop that top open so there's no suction. Lacticups is a slimmer profile than the Ladybug. Lacticups does have the little hole on the top so you can pour milk out of it. That's also the purpose of the hole in the Ladybug. So instead of having to get this weird dump my milk out, you're pouring it out of the top hole as a spout. So that's why those holes are there. So these are passive collectors. These will not increase your milk supply. They just collect what you passively leak. Do be aware that what you leak into these, we will often call in the lactation world drip milk. Sometimes if you just have little bits of drip milk, you can collect it, you can store it, but you have to be careful if it stays at breast temperature too long. You just want to be careful of how you're collecting that milk. If you collect quite a bit of this drip milk, you can obviously save it, offer it in a bottle. Small amounts that stay at breast temperature too long could potentially grow some bacteria if you're not careful of how things are washed and managed, if you're shreddy and all that kind of stuff. So just be careful of how you handle your drip milk, okay? So those are passive collectors. Then you have your active collectors. You'll sometimes hear these called manual pumps, silicone breast pumps. It's a deceptive name. They don't replace an electric pump for pumping breast milk. But when they are suctioned on, they do generate more suction than the passive collectors, and they will pull off more milk than what you would just normally leak. Biggest caution with these, there's all different kinds and sizes and brands. You have the Ladybug, or there's one called Bumblebee. There's obviously the most common brand is Haakaa. They have small ones and large ones. They have suction cups so they don't tip over. Most of them now will have a product like a plug so that you can pop it in so you don't spill it. Okay, this is the Pump Pod by Save the Milk, this one. Okay, I just did a video on this the other day. Look for my review of this one. The Pump Pod, it goes by nipple diameter and not just the open one. So there's a big caution when you're using these milk collectors. So these will, again, for most people, pull off more milk than what you would just naturally leak, which some people can collect that milk and have a nice little stash without ever using a pump, an electric pump. But sometimes we can be feeding the Haakaa when we want to be feeding the baby. So if you're suctioning this on the opposite breast while you're feeding, sometimes this can move the milk that the baby would actually be feeding. These can also create an oversupply of milk because they do move more milk than what you just naturally leak. I've also seen these cause some damage to breasts when they're on too tight. They basically cup your nipple. So these can pull off a little more milk than you would naturally leak. They can also spill milk. For some people too, because they pull off the front milk, the beginning milk in the feeding, they can create an oversupply by causing your body to make more milk than it needs. And this milk occasionally, for some people with a really large supply, can be more of that fore milk. which the La Leche League will call it a lactose overload, where it doesn't have the back fatty milk that happens when the baby or the pump move milk through the breast. So this can sometimes, if you're only feeding leaked milk, can sometimes cause a lactose overload in the baby where they have green, really watery poops because you're not getting to the more fatty milk at the back. So those are some of the cautions of using these, but I have actually seen these do a nice job for some people of pulling off extra milk for offering the first bottle or for having a small stash for when going back to work. So know that there are some options with these. I used to say back in the day, if you had a plugged duct, you could put Epsom salts in here and do an Epsom salt soak. No longer recommending it because we're finding that it can cause inflammation for some people that can actually make plugged ducts and mastitis worse. So if you did that as an old school recommendation, it did work for some people, but the new research says you'd want to avoid using these for Epsom salt soaks because it can cause more inflammation to perpetuate those plugs. Now with these, there's a couple different ways that you can apply them. You can have them down over the baby. So you can latch the baby on one side and then have that haka over top of the baby. You can also suction them to the side or even upside down because they do get suctioned on there. So if you have a kicky baby, you can point it up and then you just lean over to pull that milk off. So a couple different ways you can do that. To suction it on the breast, you can just pop it on and squeeze it, and it will suction on for you. That gives you less suction, tends to pop off more easily. Usually you would flip it inside out, squeeze it, put it on your breast, flip the collar, and then you get a much deeper suction. But again, this is what can cause too much suction for some people, which can cause inflammation or damage to that breast. But again, some people will use those to help themselves out with leaking or if baby only feeds from one side. So that's leaking milk. Again, normal to leak, to not leak. It's not an indication of anything other than you have milk in the breast. Normal to not leak as much over time. As you get further into your breastfeeding journey. In my experience, most people will slow down in their leaking around 3 to 4 months as supply regulates, but some people can leak even once their supply is regulated and can last the entire time they breastfeed because our bodies are amazing and unusual. So that's my spiel on leaking. Let me know about your leaking journey down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Now you know.